So you have to find the people in your audience who are the most critical, cynical, and generally not pleased. You know those customers who are, like, really vocal and you kinda love them, but they love to tell you what you're doing wrong? So they're really helpful. And you gotta go and tell them, "This is what I'm thinking," and then they can say to you why it's a really bad idea, and that can be super helpful because you can go back to the drawing board, or it can be super helpful because you can think, "Yeah, and that's why I'm gonna do it."
There are secrets out there, guys, performance marketing secrets, and knowing just one or two of them can absolutely light up your funnels. Let's go. This is the Revenue Driven CMO. I'm your host, Chris Mechanic. Join me as I uncover the secrets of the world's most elite CMOs and marketing leaders. The Revenue Driven CMO is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the AI driven performance agency that makes you smarter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Revenue Driven CMO. I am your host, Chris Mechanic, here with a really exciting guest today. I'm very excited to be speaking with her. She is somebody who exemplifies strategic leadership and operational excellence. She brings a wealth of experience with a career that spans not only marketing, but previously she was journalist into journalism and reporting at Bloomberg, which is a very different world, of course. But I think a lot of those skill sets are very transferable. But she's really known for her ability to navigate complex operational challenges, enhancing customer experience along the way, and optimizing processes to drive growth. Her strategic vision and problem-solving acumen have consistently led to big wins and measurable success across improving delivery models, as well as spearheading innovation and other growth initiatives. Currently, she is CMO at Prosper, which is an innovative financial services company. And welcome to the show, Miss Hattie Moll. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you for your lovely introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to be speaking with you. Why don't you share with all the listeners, like, what would you say one of your biggest secrets to success is?
So I guess for me, the most important thing that I always cling to and where everything else comes from is to not be boring. And when I say not being boring, what I mean by that is making sure that everything we do when we talk about marketing is about touching people. It's not about selling something. And that means whether you're thinking about performance marketing, you're thinking about your next big creative campaign. Is it different? Is it talking to your audience in a way that they speak? Is it funny? Is it interesting? Is it differentiated? In this sort of attention economy, you really need to be thinking about whether you're actually attracting anybody to you whatsoever. We're all so time pressed. So for me, yeah, it's like, just don't be boring.
Yeah, that's, I think, great advice personally. I think humor is under leveraged in a big way. And you bring up a good point about attention, right? So, like, if you're not getting attention, if you're not stopping that scroll, then you have absolutely no chance. I think, some of the other CMOs that are listening might be like, okay, yeah, easy for you to say, I work in compliance, or I work at an accounting firm and my prospects are very serious people. This is a very serious subject matter. Like, we don't want to present necessarily as humorous or funny, but how do you navigate that? Suppose you are in a serious space, right?
Yeah.
Financial services.
Yeah, I'm in a regulated space, so I work in financial services. There's a few things that you can do, right? So when we think about not being boring, doesn't mean that we can't cover serious topics with our content. What it really means is about being brave, about what is the feeling that you want to create in the person that you're talking to through whatever channel it is that you're meeting them at, wherever they are in the funnel. So insight is really where it's at. I mean, the leitmotif of my career has been working with high net worth individuals or celebrities back in the day when I worked at MTV and Bloomberg before that with CEOs, leadership teams. And when you spend a lot of time with people who have maybe an awful lot of money, but not a lot of time, you realize very quickly that they need you to get to the point fast, and they want insight. They've got everything else. And it's really the same for all of us. So whenever you think about your marketing, wherever you're meeting your client, it's what is the insight that they need from you now, and tell them in the first line. This is where the journalism comes in, right? Don't save your headline for the bottom of the page. So it's about getting to the point and making sure that that point is of absolute relevance to the person you're speaking to. It's a really hard thing to do, by the way. I'm not pretending that it's easy, but it can be fun.
Totally. I mean, I can definitely see that being fun. And I'm curious, like, how do you come up? So some people might say, hey, we're in a serious space. You just addressed that, I think, well. But then how do you come up with it? Like, are you hiring comedians to kind of write lines? Or are you just
Well,
funny yourself? Or you hire funny people? Like, how does...
it's not necessarily always about humor, right? We can be really interested in things without necessarily using humor, although humor is a really important tool. What you're trying to do is surprise and delight. So I've been lucky enough to work in the last few years with 2 startup scale-ups. So Prosper, where I am right now, is a pre-seed seed startup. And before that, I was at Ytree, which is pure financial advice for ultra high net worth. So these people are mostly working in like private equity or maybe property, or maybe they've got inherited wealth, and they're looking for really sophisticated financial advice. It's not funny. um, but what you want to do is grab their attention in a way that's relevant to them. So that can be about having masterful copywriters. So the tagline that we eventually landed on for Ytree, which is the name of the company that I'm talking about, was central intelligence for money and life. So that's the kind of phrase that it's curious, right? You're interested. Central intelligence. I'm immediately taken to the Pentagon. But I'm also thinking money and life. What? So you got to leave people questioning and curious and interested. And we can all do that. And we do it. We do it when we're trying to get our kids to do things that they don't want to do. We get creative about, hey, have you seen this? This, like, let me show you how fun getting dressed in this outfit can be. We put the effort and the energy in. And that's really all I'm talking about. And that's what I see missing from such a huge amount of the marketing that's out there. Whether I'm not just talking B2C, I'm talking B2B too. You can be B2B and be super, super interesting. Salesforce obviously have really lent into that, and they've done an amazing job with it. But it doesn't have to just be Salesforce. We can all do it if we really try.
Yeah. No, one of my favorites with the kids, instead of like, hey, brush your teeth, hurry up, I'll be like, I bet you can't brush your teeth in 3 minutes or less. Right.
That's a did you know? Like, so exactly. Exactly. You've got it. That's the kind of thinking and the kind of conversation that we want to be starting with potential customers.
Yeah. You mentioned Salesforce. That's interesting. What do you see? I'm navigating to their website right now, but like, what do you see in their messaging or in their marketing that's like fun, or maybe not funny, but...
Yeah. Well, so they've used characters. So they use you can probably see them if you're on the front. They use various characters, and they take, every time you open Salesforce, you get taken on a little journey with one of their characters. But the kind of ethos that they used behind building the brand was to behave like a B2C, even though they're a B2B. Now, what does that actually mean? It's like, it's crazy. It's actually like a headspace that we get into when we're in B2B world, that we drop a lot of the fun stuff. It's like, I'm a business talking to another business. And it's like, no, you're a person talking to another person. So why can't you invest in brand identity? Why can't you have fluent devices like little cartoon characters? There's nobody said you couldn't, you're allowed. What's really interesting to me, just last year, Adam Morgan, who has a business called Eat Big Fish and System One, and Peter Field did some research which is ongoing into the cost of dull. And what they've discovered, and this is so far they've only looked at TV ads. They haven't yet looked at sort of performance marketing, but I'm sure that's what they're probably doing it now. And what they've found is that if you put any money into TV ads, you will create an impact. Even if your ad is super rational and boring, you'll still get a return. If you make that TV ad emotional, that it connects, that it does what I'm excited about, which is, marketing to touch people rather than just to sell things, you get a 6 times return. So there is actually a cost to being dull. And the fun part of it is like exploring with ourselves, are we dull? So that's kind of the interesting part of when you get into this process, is like starting to get forensic on looking at your own content, looking at your own funnels, looking at the data and going, okay, which are the things that are really working for us? And I'd be amazed if most of us, when we really look, don't find that, oh, it's actually that one human story that we tell in that Instagram ad that's been working for us for like over a year. That's the one that's doing the best because it connects on. And so then how can we do more of that? And how can we find more of what really drives us as a business and bring that out, be a bit emotionally brave with what we're doing? That's the kind of stuff I get excited about.
That is exciting. And now that you mentioned Salesforce, I remember they did some TV commercials that featured Keanu Reeves, and it was sort of like a train heist type of a commercial where I think Keanu was the defender of like the safe that contained valuable, you would think it'd be gold because it was like this old Western kind of motif. But then you learned later that what was in that safe was data, and there's bad people coming for your data, and it was a message about security and just keeping data safe from Salesforce. But it was definitely entertaining.
I mean, you said Keanu, you had me at Keanu, but also like you remembered it, right? And that's all we want to be, is remembered.
Yeah. Who are some other brands that you think are doing well? Like, does anybody else come to mind when you just see their ads or their messages and you're just like, that's brilliant?
There are, but of course they're not right front of mind for me right now, which is, oh, I know. We have one in the UK. I don't know if you have them. They've kind of done this brilliant thing. They're called Who Gives a Crap.
Oh man, that's good.
Have you heard of them?
No, but I want to.
So they make toilet paper, right?
Oh my goodness.
And basically what they've done is they've taken away all of the plastic packaging, and they individually wrap the rolls in beautiful, like brightly colored paper, and they have amazing copywriting on them that's very, very humorous. And obviously it's with you in the bathroom, which isn't a wholly stupid thing. And what they've done for Christmas, I just saw today, is they've basically redesigned all of the individual packaging to create gnomes they've called it gnomes on the throne. And basically they've got, these stackable rolls. So it's like they've done Christmas decorations for your bathroom. It's very clever. So I'd say they're kind of acing it. And also all of their outside packaging, their boxes and so on, when they arrive at your house, they've got wonderful copywriting on. So I definitely recommend looking at them as a brand that mixes purpose, because they're sustainable, but they also give us some of their profit to create sustainable loos I think in Africa. So they give away some of their profit. So it's a Ted's model, but they also Tom's model, sorry, not Ted. But they also create this fun element that becomes part of your house. So they do that magic thing of creating loyalty, and loyalty in brands in 2024. Wow. If you can do that, you've really nailed it.
Yeah. And I mean, you had me at humorous copy on the toilet paper because it's a utility too. It's like now you don't need to bring any reading material with you.
Correct. I like, they are genuinely, their copywriters are amazing. Another one who've done it again in that kind of purposeful way is Tony's Chocolonely. Do they exist in the US?
I'm not familiar with them, no.
So they're rethinking the chocolate and the supply chain. So basically taking a very serious matter, with childhood slavery, out of chocolate. But they again have done it with humor and with a lightness of touch that is so needed in this world right now. It immediately cuts through, and it's more than just the beautiful packaging and the lovely fonts that they've chosen. It's actually that the intention is made clear through every choice that they've made. So they even down to the shapes of the squares of the chocolate, they've made them all unevenly, which represents the fact that the unfairness of the world we live in. So yeah, so there are brands doing amazing stuff. I wish I could think of some American ones.
Hey, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, Web Mechanics will do 10 to 20 hours of work for you for free. Literally no sales calls, no BS. Just give them a problem and they will put a team to work for you for free for 10 to 20 hours, even if you're already a client. If you're struggling with demand gen, lead gen, SEO, SEM, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, conversion optimization, if you can't get Facebook or Meta ads to work for the life of you, or you can't figure out attribution, Web Mechanics will take a good hard look at whatever problem you give them, whatever programs you put in front of them, and they will give you an objective, informed opinion, plus some advice from 10 to 20 hours of senior level attention. So I would suggest take them up on this offer. It's ridiculous. Go to revenuedrivencmo.com/free, fill out the 2-minute form, and you will not regret it. Literally zero downside, unlimited potential for growth. So do yourself a favor, revenuedrivencmo.com/free, no hyphens, no punctuations. You will be happy about that decision.
Yeah, there's this software company called ClickUp. I believe that's their name, ClickUp, but they do these really funny YouTube videos, and they put ad dollars behind them, but it's essentially like an interview. Like it's like a really it's like an interview that's like just a real parody. Like it takes the funniest, weirdest things that happen in interviews, it just really amplifies them.
Oh, sweet. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you or include it in the show notes, but it's very funny. But yeah, I'm sold.
It's a risk, right? Using humor, like you can get it wrong, and that's scary.
Yeah, you can totally get it wrong. And people get offended like fairly easily these days. It's funny, like, I've seen people get offended by things that I was surprised even after hearing that they were offended. I was still surprised that it offended them. But so let's get to the actionable part. So the readers are probably sold to an extent. I think we've all consumed, advertising that's not boring and where humor was used well. But what advice can we leave to folks that are looking at their own messaging and just saying, "Oh my goodness, I've fallen victim to the boring trap. We need to change this." Like, what are some steps that they should take?
Reconnect. Go back inside. So start with what the vision and the values are of the company. Go back. If you don't have a vision and values that are meaningful to you, that resonate, do the values project. It's worth it, because if you get that bit right, it will then give you the keys to unlock every other bit that you're doing and redoing, because of course we all have to revisit things. Working inside out is the best way, and that starts with you, the individual marketeer. What do I care about? What are the questions that I am asking myself at the moment in my own life? What is really relevant to me? And then think, am I the audience? Because that really matters. If you're not the audience, no doubt you understand who your own audience is. Find out, if you don't already know, what the questions are that they have, that they are asking themselves. And I'm talking big, existential, real life, human questions that we might be struggling with at different times. So again, when we think about like what my direct experience has been recently working with ultra high net worths and their wealth, they have massive questions and emotional, lots of big emotions around their place in the world. How should they be spending their money? What kind of legacy should they be creating for others, and so on? And once you, as the marketeer, have got yourself into the headspace of those questions, then think about the insight that you can give that helps them answer those questions, or takes them on a journey towards answering those questions. And that might take you quite far away from your product, but that's okay. As long as the product then is also answering that need on the more pragmatic, practical level, you're good. And it should be, if your values and your vision are making sense. So basically, go back to the first principles of what the vision and values are of the company, and don't be afraid to find, some difficult questions, some difficult emotions. Being emotionally brave with your marketing is really the only place to start if you want to make it interesting.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. And I'll toss one other thing out that you said during the prep call is to, I forget the word that you used, but you sort of will like test it. Like you'll screen, like you'll come up with an idea and then sort of test it. Like you'll show it to 5 different people.
So you have to find the people in your audience who are the most critical, cynical, and generally not pleased. Those customers who are like really vocal, and you kind of love them, but they love to tell you what you're doing wrong. So they're really helpful. And you got to go and tell them, this is what I'm thinking, and then they can say to you why it's a really bad idea, and that can be super helpful because you can go back to the drawing board, or it can be super helpful because you can think, yeah, and that's why I'm going to do it. Because sometimes like experiments need to actually get out there and into the wild, but and you can get the feedback from customers, and they can tell you that they don't like it, but then when it's actually visible in front of them in a different way, they really like it. So do you know what I mean? You got to have people that you can use as sounding boards, and then sometimes you also have to ignore that. It's back to this thing of like the art and the science of marketing. Like, I love data, and I love really understanding what's working, what isn't, but I also love ignoring it sometimes.
Yes. I love that. That's the quote of the show right there. I remember, just very quick anecdote. When I was getting into marketing, it was sort of the early 2000s. And Google Analytics, I don't even think was out yet. But I remember when Google Analytics came out and people started talking about measurement, it was like new and novel and cutting edge to really talk about data, being data driven, or measuring the impact on like a campaign by campaign basis. Like that was really cutting edge and innovative. But now it's really just table stakes. But I think we might have like gone a little bit too far in that direction, because there's a lot of people that are just like religiously following the data, but I think ignoring it, to your point, sometimes is.
Well, it also becomes overwhelming, right? So you've got to we've got to be doing it all. We need an integrated marketing plan that covers all bases. We need to make sure that we are where our audience are. So we got to be with Google. I mean, we got to be doing our Google ads and so on. But we've also got to make sure that what we're doing in our Google ads is converting. So, you can get so caught up in the metrics at the top of the funnel that you kind of ignore the whole kind of big conversion bit. And then there's also retention. So depending on what kind of funnel you're working with, there are all sorts of different pieces, and some parts are just a little bit unknowable, and we have to work with our instincts, and we have to trust and know that, out of home ads do work. Do they work if they're boring? Yes. Would they work better if they were more interesting? Yes. So, but effectiveness in marketing is obviously what comes out the other end. But then how the campaigns and how your channels are interacting with each other, some of it, like, you can get lost in that, man.
100%. 100%. I want to talk about Prosper in a second, but just one other thing that popped into my mind in terms of being boring is I think sometimes you can be unboring, or at least less boring, with things other than words. Like, for instance, element like website elements. If you think about landing page with a form on it, quite boring. But if you think about like interactive sort of, quiz-like experience, right? That's like asking you questions that are relevant to whatever it is that you're looking for. Like, that's much less boring, you know?
Totally. So exactly. So the way that you're engaging with your audience is totally important. I think another brand that I love brands that subvert their category, so behave like a completely different category than the one that they're in. There's a beauty brand in the UK called Lush, and I quote them a lot because they behave like what we call a greengrocer, like a corner shop. So you walk into Lush, apart from the fact you can smell them from down the street because their products smell so strong. I love it. So maybe some people don't, but it's a great way to advertise. And when you go into their shops, all of the beauty products are in sort of wooden crates, like fruit and vegetables. And it's not something that necessarily as a customer you would like clock, but at the same time, it has an impact and it's memorable. So there's loads of different ways that we're communicating all the time, like you said, that are nothing to do with copy and everything to do with visual tone of voice.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And also, I'm thinking about videos that tend to engage. I think like highly produced videos that are really corporate and, fairly slow moving, boring. But then you think about like UGC style videos that are more sort of POV filmed from a cell phone and just like really quick cut, like they'll say something and then very quickly they'll cut to a different thing. And then like they'll be showing captions on the screen and just like all these visual elements kind of dancing around. Less boring.
That's so funny that you say that, because I've literally just done a campaign in the last few weeks with one of our investors, who's the founder of a massively successful challenger bank called Monzo over here, Tom Blomfield. And we got him to record a really simple piece to camera about how, he's started various businesses and now wants to help people prosper. And then we just covered it in all of this kind of Gen X type graphics, and we've sent it out to CTOs, CEOs, CMOs, just as a kind of word of mouth type campaign, just asking them to download the app and look at it. We're just in that phase of growth where we want to do things that don't scale, and we just want people to be talking about us who are our ideal audience, and also who can give us great feedback because they understand the kind of challenge that we're facing building the business. So there you go. That's an example of the kind of content. I hope I've hit the marks you're talking about.
You have, definitely. Yeah, I heard a term the other day called dopamine design, which is kind of related, but it's just like really bright colors and fun shapes where you might not expect them. But like if a B2B website were designed, almost to look like, like a Beverly
Candy shop.
company or candy shop. Yeah, like that would be really hard to ignore, right?
Agree. Totally.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Prosper. I'm really interested to learn more about it. Can you give us a little bit of background? And I'm also curious what attracted you to it.
So I love a challenge. And as we said, in the sort of spirit of not being boring, I love complex, and to try to make financial services personal finance, which is by design opaque, hard to understand, hard to visualize because there's nothing actually to hold in your hand. I love the challenge of making that interesting and relevant and about life, not money. I have realized in the last few years working in this field how much attention I didn't give to my own personal finance for decades. Um, and that's a real waste of what could have been a much wealthier experience in my later life. I mean, I'll get there, as I hope more and more people will, when they realize that actually you can now, at a low cost and a fairly low effort, with a brand like Prosper, actually change your future outcomes with for your retirement. So what we're talking about is high interest cash savings accounts and investment products, which in the UK we're really talking pensions and what we call ISAs, and general investment accounts. So these are tax efficient wrappers for you to invest your money. And we at Prosper, through the app, you can access over 165 funds, which isn't a huge amount at all. And the reason for that is that you shouldn't need a huge amount to build a great portfolio across the commodities, geographies, whatever that you want. The unique piece about us is we have no platform fee, and we refund the fees on 30 ETFs from providers such as Vanguard, BlackRock, Fidelity. Why do we do that? Because we have such a strong belief in maximizing your potential wealth and in the fact that this is an industry that can afford to have an enormous amount of fat trimmed and still create a profitable business. So I describe us as the Aldi of investing. I don't know if you have Aldi yet.
We do,
in
yeah.
the state. You do. It's kind of like Costco, but without the membership, right? So Costco would be a great equivalent for us for Prosper too. But the thing about Aldi is you kind of walk in and you've got the best value fruit and veg, eggs, cheese, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got a crazy middle aisle. And in the crazy middle aisle, they've got branded goods from pet foods to, I don't know, Mexican food. They do what you call Old El Paso. They tend to always have Old El Paso. I don't know why. All sorts of other things. And that's your kind of fun spot. And at Prosper, that's what we're going to do too, because we're going to give access to private markets. So alternative investments, from private equity to crypto and whatever, because we believe that we're agnostic, right? People in life, they want to have a bit of play money, which is where for your crypto, and then you've got your safe money, which is where you really want to have the majority of your money. And we want to give people access to all of that choice, but in a curated space where they know that they're getting the best value and they're paying what they should in costs and fees. Because the difference that costs and fees make is enormous. It's about over 30 years of investment. If you're paying over 1%, you're losing between 30 to 45% of your eventual profit.
Yeah, I've seen some of those models, and it's like amazing because 1% sounds quite reasonable, but it's actually quite expensive.
Oh, it's massively expensive. And those are just the costs and fees for the funds. Then you'll be charged advice fees on top of that if you're working with a traditional legacy wealth manager. So there's an awful lot to be changed in this industry, and Prosper's we're super, super ambitious and hungry to get everybody having a great life. Basically, the point is a better retirement. The point is living the life you want to live. It's about life, not money.
Yeah. No, that'd be a good tagline right there. It's about life, not money. But that's amazing. So you take the low cost, because Vanguard is known as, lowest cost, most efficient provider. So you guys take that and you are refunding the actual fees from Vanguard?
We are refunding the fund fees on 30 ETFs, including some from Vanguard. You can see them all in the app. Because it's a point of principle for us right now. And the other thing that we're doing is through the great relationships that we have with UK banks, we're a cash platform, a cash aggregator as well. So once you've passed your KYC or know your client in the app, you can then open as many cash savings accounts with as many different banks as you like. And that means that if you are the kind of person who's like really eagle-eyed about interest rates, that you've got that freedom to like move your cash around. The idea for us is that you understand that your average person, you shouldn't have too much money in cash. The majority should be in your investments. And that's kind of the challenge for me in marketing, is to take people on that journey. If they do come to us as cash customers, which the majority do, we then have to take you on that journey to be with us for the long term.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds like an amazing deal, and some really like excellent utilities.
We're growing crazy fast right now. So for me, it's been so amazing to see. Like I heard this wonderful expression around, if you want to have a successful hot dog stand, you know this one? You want to have a successful hot dog stand. It's not about the location. It's not about the quality of the hot dogs. It's about the starving crowd. And what we have right now is a starving crowd. And that's to do with timing, right? That people are waking up right now to the cost of their long-term investments. And we're living at a time where none of us can afford to be overpaying for our money. We wouldn't overpay for anything else. So why are we overpaying for our own money? And I think we're really lucky with that momentum and timing. And it's a luck thing. We're in that zeitgeist where I think more and more people, Vanguard opened the door, and now, there's an awful lot more to be done to walk through it.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm seeing it on your site now. You've got this nice little section, the power of compound interest and the tyranny of compounding costs. I like that. But it says, if you have 100K and you hold it for 30 years, you will have 240K, so more than a double after 30 years if you're paying 2% fee. If you're paying 0.5% fee, that 100K would be 370K. So more than a triple, nearly a quadruple.
Yeah, and we're offering 0.
Yeah. How do you guys do that? I mean,
well, as we explained, so some people, we're refunding the fund fees on 30 ETFs. So we have 165. So some people will want the ones that they pay for. Then obviously there's our cash savings accounts as well. We're taking a tiny piece of interest. So the banks will normally be taking 3 to 4% off the interest rates that they're offering you, your average retail bank. So I think your average retail savings account in the UK right now is at around 2%, and we're offering savings accounts with sort of in excess of 4.5 at the moment. Obviously it changes a lot depending on the bank interest rates, Bank of England interest rates. So we're just taking much smaller percentages. In the future, maybe we will have to have a platform fee, but for now what we're doing is just opening the shop and saying, please come on in. And then as people convert, we can start to understand what are the kind of promotional levers that we can pull, and where's the revenue share going to be for us? Where do we make the revenue? So at the moment, we don't pay any interest on your uninvested cash, but we do nudge you to invest your cash.
Gotcha.
Makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. That's really cool. So if we talk about marketing and specifically like customer acquisition, what's really working for you guys? Like what's really driving the engine?
Well, for now, like where we are right now, it's a lot about promotions. So we're working in hand in glove with, I guess you'll have them in the States too. Like we have this money supermarket, money saving expert. These are kind of platforms where when you type into Google, top cash savings account or whatever, these are the ones that respond to you. So there's a whole variety of them in the UK. Go compare, Money Supermarket, Money Saving Expert. Money Saving Expert is by far the most popular one, and it's kind of the front man is a guy called Martin Lewis, who's done an amazing amount of good for the UK consumer around saving money, and he covers all the different consumer areas really, really, really well. Like he's really something. And so we have had our cash savings products listed on Money Saving Expert. That then drives a huge amount of traffic to us, and the conversion follows. These are people who are highly motivated, who have searched looking for a specific product. They then come in and they find Prosper. So to date, as I said, we're at seed funding stage. We haven't invested anything in advertising beyond the absolute minimum in Google Ads and a tiny bit in Meta. I'm just doing experiments in Meta, but I'm not doing it. LinkedIn is completely organic. I'm not spending anything anywhere apart from in word of mouth. So word of mouth for me means events with the right kind of audience. So we do these insight events with like really great authors. So next week we've got the two New York Times writers who went undercover at Twitter. They wrote Character Limit is their book. And obviously it's super interesting to hear what they experienced when they went undercover there. And for our audience, who tend to be, they're people who are thinking about their future. If you're thinking about investing, you tend to be super, super motivated by the world, what's happening in the world and what's going to happen in the future. So we try to put on events that bring that insight. It's like what I was talking about earlier, right? It's unexpected. Like you wouldn't expect maybe your pension provider to give you an invite to an event with with the people writing Character Limit. And I love that. That's the kind of thing that we're doing. So we're investing a bit in that, and we're investing in other word of mouth pieces. So unlikely partnerships. We've got a partnership with Huntsman, the Savile Row tailor, the tailor behind Kingsman. I don't know if you saw that film. Again, because the craftsmanship and the dedication that Huntsman put into their tailoring, I see as being equivalent to the kind of long-term thinking. It's one suit that can last you generations. That's what we're thinking about. When you think about money, you should be thinking about the same thing. It's like, how can I invest in something now that's going to still be with me and still be giving me reward 30, 40, 50 years from now. So that's another partnership. Also, obviously, it's a great place to find people with high net worths. And yeah, I'm a big believer in pitching rich, because it only takes a few high net worth customers and you've hit targets that you didn't think imaginable through your mass affluent.
That's funny. Yeah, I could totally see like a product led growth play. Like I haven't been in the app, but I could imagine, between these different partnerships that you're striking up, like that you could have like flash sales, like, hey, get this suit, for instance, for, a special, like really, really low rate that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah. So that's it. So it's these promotions and products. And like when I talk about us as the Aldi of investing, it's again because what I talked about earlier about this subverting the category. Financial services category, it's so noisy, it's so boring. For us to get any attention whatsoever, I think we're going to have to be super creative, and we're going to have to do something very different that really differentiates us. And one of the things we could do would be to behave like a supermarket. So that also could play into how you experience the product in the app. It could transfer into the kind of promotions that we're offering, or at least the language and the symbols that would be familiar to all of us, because we all have to use the supermarket.
Yeah, totally. And supermarkets do loss leaders, right? Like it'll be like, half off of whatever cola, which clearly they're losing money on that, but they just want to get you in the door so that you'll buy whatever else, buy at full price. That's really cool. That's really awesome. There's a small company stateside who is trying to do something like that, but it's not quite as cool. as what you're talking about. And certainly they don't have like, refundable fees on any of their funds. But are you familiar with M1? Have you heard of them?
No,
M1 Finance?
no. I will check them
Their
out.
whole shtick is like dollar cost averaging. So like it's really easy to just set up, $100 a month that comes out of your account and goes into a fund. And they also enable you to create what they call pies, which are basically like portfolios. So you can like sort of create your own mutual fund in a way by choosing, the 10 stocks that you want and setting the certain percentage. So like you have $100 a month coming out of your account, and 10% is going to Tesla stock, 10% is going to Amazon or whatever. So it's basically like automate your world kind of a thing, but it sounds like it's not as cool as what you've got going on here.
Well, it might be a slightly different audience because that sounds to me like a bit younger, like millennial, maybe Gen Z. We're really trying to create a brand for Gen X, the old forgotten generation, my generation, that, hasn't yet. I can't think of a new emerging brand that is representative of Gen X. And I'd love to be able to create something that hit that slightly grungy, slightly cynical, very tender generation that I consider to be Gen X, and very fun. We have a humor that is, I don't know, because we were not parented.
That's funny. Is it UK only or
For now, we are UK only,
got it?
but obviously, the world eventually.
Yeah. Well, that's super exciting. I love the brand. I love the concept. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job of acquiring customers, like via partnerships and maybe some sort of affiliate type relationship. So very well done. I've lost track of time here, and I know that we've got to get you out of here shortly. Um, my last question for you is, if we look to the future, like what's up next? Like what are you guys investing in next year, or like what are you excited about when you think about 2025?
Brand. I'm super excited about brand. I feel like we kind of touched on it earlier. The performance marketing era is absolutely, of course, always here to stay, but there's a resurgence in understanding that we need to invest and love our brands, and that we've got such a great opportunity, which we've just been talking about, to create a kind of high love, high respect brand, if you're thinking about the sort of the XY axis. So it really, on my journey, personal emotional journeys, to try to make the world a better place, we can't do it unless we're communicating something that makes you feel something, whether you then become a prosper customer or not. My biggest opportunity, and the bit that gets me the most excited, is to just bring a message that might make you want to take an action of some kind, that makes your life a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit wealthier. So for me, next year is all about brand and creating something truly memorable, fun, wholehearted.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've been talking to several people about brand recently, and framing it kind of as the ultimate growth hack. Because like as you invest in that brand, guess what? Like your performance marketing efforts become much more effective, right? Like, once you've heard of, like, if I'm driving down the road and I've never heard of Aldi, right? Like I might keep driving to go to a different supermarket that I know of. But if you are somebody who knows Aldi and loves Aldi, like you would stop there without thinking about it. That's kind of like a metaphor for, I guess, landing page and funnel conversion rates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that layered with the joy of AI and where that's taking us in marketing, like it is a really happy partnership. So for somebody like me who loves the big picture thinking and the vision rethinking, I've got my GPTs to then support me, and hopefully, agents, as we move into the agents era, like to support that and to allow for the human creative thinking to really have more space. Instead of being 60-70% stuck in meetings, we can now be freed up to do the kind of deep thinking that maybe got lost a little bit in the last few years of sort of marketing trends.
100% agree. Hattie, this was amazing. I really enjoyed it. For everybody that's listening, if you enjoyed this, if you learned anything, if you laughed a little bit, pay it forward by sharing this with a friend or dropping us a 5-star review wherever you get your pods. We really appreciate that. Hattie, for folks that would like to learn more about you or Prosper, where would you direct them?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Hattie Moll, or for Prosper, prosper.co.uk.
Love it. Hattie, we'll stay on the line just a second. This was anything but boring. It was awesome. We'll wrap up in just a moment, but for everybody else, that was another exciting episode of Revenue Driven CMO, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us here today. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at revenuedrivencmo.com. That's revenuedrivencmo.com. And hey, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, Web Mechanics will do 10 to 20 hours of work for you for free. Literally no sales calls, no BS. Just give them a problem and they will put a team to work for you for free for 10 to 20 hours. Even if you're already a client, if you're struggling with demand gen, lead gen, SEO, SEM, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, conversion optimization, if you can't get Facebook or Meta ads to work for the life of you, or you can't figure out attribution, Web Mechanics will take a good hard look at whatever problem you give them, whatever programs you put in front of them, and they will give you an objective, informed opinion, plus some advice from 10 to 20 hours of senior level attention. And that's just because you're a listener of this podcast. So I would suggest take them up on this offer. It's ridiculous. Go to revenuedrivencmo.com/free, fill out the 2-minute form, and you will not regret it. Literally zero downside, unlimited potential for growth. So do yourself a favor, revenuedrivencmo.com/free, no hyphens, no punctuations. You will be happy about that decision.